Hey there, welcome back to our Dino Crisis 2 playthrough, and if you might remember, we found a plug for this computer the last time we played this, and this is a continuation of that mission, and this was played across 3 days, way back when, and you can see when this was recorded in the production notes if you look at the description of this video. Before we move on to the next part, we'll have to finish this part, and this part is finishing up the underwater section, and that means that we have to get rid of those floating menaces, but also a boss a little bit later, so let's keep an eye on the energy, and let's not forget that, because even though we're carrying energy and supply of that, and a limitless supply it seems, as long as we get to those checkpoints, we'll have to keep an eye on those meters. Luckily we're through the hard part, that's the puzzle element, and we've collected all we need to collect on this particular section. Let's check out the shop whilst we're here, and the weapons and everything else, the magazines. What have we got? 37 rounds. Let's just top that up because we don't want to be in a lacking situation if we're going to face some kind of a boss. Let's also save up that game because we are now going to move into shortly uncharted territory, hopefully. And if I remember rightly, the way to go, that is, having played this game, it is a bit of a labyrinth that you'll have to find your way around. Luckily, we can now get through those barriers and on to another screen where we find it looks like a diver. We found a city key card, and that is simply lying around. It's great that those things aren't hidden, and the Plesiosaurus, whatever that says, it's a lizard and it swims underwater. I'm surprised these lizards can breathe underwater, but that's another issue. Let's just ascend or descend this elevator.
The reactor has been damaged. The third energy reactor has been damaged. Switching to emergency power. Areas will be blocked to prevent explosions.
Looks like the exit is blocked by that thing, so let's just recover at this point to make sure we're all green before we get into the jaws of that beast. That's the way we've just come from. That's the cooling aqueduct. We don't really want to go back. And luckily this game is linear, we don't have to go backwards, we can simply go forwards from now on. And now that beast has disappeared, maybe that was a bit of a trick to get rid of it, but look, it's back. What can we do? Well, we're gonna have to keep marching forward and climbing up a tower, and if we see that thing coming around that tower, we're gonna have to get ready to shoot it.
The water current is presently normal. Deactivating defense mode.
And you can see we get lots of points. 10,000 points for killing that boss. And that boss with the grenades isn't so hard at all. And that boss, well, is not a particular menace, and none of the dinosaurs in this game are a particular menace, including the very last one, which we will get to in the next section. And yes, there's only one video to go after this, and we're about to move from that frying pan into the fire with the next section. But for now, let's just ascend this tower and hopefully get out of this underwater maze. Of course, if we fall down, it's a long way all around it again, and I really can't bother to do that the long way, so I'm making sure that all of these jumps, just like a platform game, make their target. And it's slightly deceptive with this camera angle, but yes, we have to jump up to get to that spot. Medipack L is littering us with extra fuel. It's littering the landscape. We cannot go wrong with this game, and as you might be able to tell from my commentary, this is one of my favourite games, my most remembered games of all time. Well, let's insert the city card and hopefully get out of this place. And look at that, it's Regina. And if we go back into that doorway, we can see a great animation of that place filling up with water, and that's a bit of an Easter egg.
Welcome back. How's the water?
I don't recommend the diving in this resort.
Hey! This is David. Is anyone there? Answer me, over!
I knew you were alive.
Yo, Dylan! I found survivors here!
Really? We're about to give up. Where are you?
The place is Edward City. Hurry!
David! David!
Edward City? That's not far from here. Let's go!
And now we're back in the hands of Dylan. And what can we do at this stage? Well, if you don't know what to do in the game, you can run around and try and find something to do. Then it won't be long before we are being attacked. And that is a horny beast. That is what we're gonna face next in the caves. So if you didn't read that Dino file, that basically says it's an armoured beast. And what we're gonna have to do is to find some extra special ammo to get rid of that. Otherwise we're going to be struggling. Very odd symbols appearing on trees.
Look, this is David's mark.
That's very cautious of him.
That's how you survive. Let's look for another mark.
Okay, let's split up then.
You can see the graphics are greatly drawn even at this stage. This is a very realistic swamp and some of the best graphics of a swamp until the 3D games came along, and even the modern games don't tend to go to such lengths. And it reminds me of Far Cry a little bit, only on a 2.5D environment. And this thing is kind of 3D. The sprites are 3D, but the backgrounds aren't. But it's all angled to look like it's 3D. And of course, this was all created using the Resident Evil package. And so you'll find rooms where we can walk from room to room, and we can see, look at those amazing backgrounds of a waterfall. You might even get to see them whilst you're playing this game. And here we can find the caves, and there's only one thing that can blow the caves apart, as far as I know. And you can see the chain mine is what we need. So what we have to do is to find the chain mine to blow that thing away. It basically tells us on the screen what we need to do. And as long as we've got the points in the bank, we can go and afford that. And hopefully a quick run around this level means we can just dash back to that nearest shop. All of those points will go into ammunition, hopefully, when we face the next opponent. And for the next opponent, he's buried away in a cave. He's a really hard guy to knock out, so we're going to have to find a way to find a better gun, and also the chain mine as well, so we can get through those caves. So if you know about that in advance, you can simply buy those from the boat. if you didn't know about that in advance, well, it's time to go back there, and all these extra points, as I say, should be turned into ammunition. So let's head back to that boat before we set off into the jungle this time, and let's ravage that shop. What do we find in here? Well, we find the chain mine for one thing, 12,000 points. Let's buy one of those because that's essential, and also the anti-tank rifle as well, and that says it's a single-handed weapon. We can also buy the double-handed rocket launcher as well, and so, well, we will need the rocket launcher. We can use it a bit later on, but for now the anti-tank gun is what we really need to spend our hard-earned cash upon. We can't afford everything, but what we're going to do is to restock a few of these weapons, and by choice, yes, let's restock the backup weapon in case we need that. It's fairly cheap to recharge at this stage. Of course, we really need to get all those chain mines, but look at that, 50 rounds in that thing. Let's buy some more cartridges. And 24,000 for plus 100, and we can afford it even though it will demolish half of our reserve. Let's go ahead and buy that. 150 rounds is a lot more like it, and we can upgrade for another 20 if we really want to do that. That's only 8, and that would leave us 10,000 points in return. But 10,000 points isn't a great deal, so let's struggle on and survive with that amount. And you can see at least 150 is needed to get through these critters. So let's get through this and let's head on back. Let's see if we can buy some lightweight armor, and that will also cut down on that damage. But will we buy that? Do we have the points? Well, no, we don't. And the silver card, we can't afford that either. We don't really need the armor at this stage as long as we have the medikits, and the medikits are looking fine. You can see all the medium ones are piled up, the large ones, we have 4 of them, and we have a resource pack as well. So there really is nothing to fear in this game as long as we run and gun. You can see it's taken us 2 hours 24 minutes, or that was the last one, 3 hours and 7 minutes to get to this point. And despite us backtracking to find out what we're supposed to do at this level. But we now have some upgrades. We now have the anti-tank gun, and as you might imagine, an anti-tank gun is a shade more powerful than any of the guns that we've managed to wield so far. And we're going to reserve the chain mine for when we really need that in the caves. So all we need to do now is to rush on back to that jungle, and let's switch to that weapon, and let's resus all the way up to the top, and hopefully with this new weapon we can take out those things a little easier. And yes, those things will literally blow the dinosaurs off the screen, and blowing the dinosaurs off the screen never gets boring, and it's always a joy. Look at that, no damage whatsoever. But we're still going to have to afford 50,000 points if we want that rocket launcher. And no, I can't simply blow the door apart with that thing, but you would expect it to do that. And let's romp on through towards that cave. Caves are very nicely drawn, and you can see a beautiful lava field there as we stand and admire that scenery. And they didn't have to go to too much detail crafting rocks on the screen, but they really have done that. And this landscape really is an incredible amount of detail for what really is a raw cave environment. And it won't be long before we find some critters down here that we're going to need to destroy. Those things literally tearing me limb from limb means that I have to use a medikit, and maybe on the hard mode that is really hard, and maybe this game could have done with some harder modes in it, because even at this stage, even though the enemies are savage, they aren't really taking much out of my health reserve, and I'm not really panicking this stage thinking that I'm going to die. And that's great. It means we can move through the story pretty quickly and get through to the next section. It even gives us a junction in the cave, and we can waste ammo at this stage trying to get through this junction. Some of them will lead to health and maybe a dead end, and you will need one of those things, a chain line, to get through the rock which blocks the exit to the caves. So you'll have to remember to keep one behind, otherwise you won't be able to leave the caves, and it's a long walk back to that boat. At this stage I can't remember which way to go, but I have some of those chain mines in reserve. The enemies will respawn forever if you walk backwards and try to get back to the boat. You will fail because you'll run out of ammo. We only have 79 bullets left, and the enemies respawn forever. So what you have to do, well, we've gone around in circles it looks like, but what you have to do is to find the exit and to use up all of your ammunition to get there. These creatures will get up with one shot and maybe even two, so you have to make sure that you hit those with at least 2 shots. And of course it will appear in the top corner with a bonus score when that thing is finally dead. So you can see it took 2 shots and didn't even impale a wound on that thing. So let's continue with the caves, and this is more or less the exit. We have 7 left. Let's use both of those just in case we need to. And let's save the rest of them just in case there's a boulder blocking the big exits at the end of this level. That is an exit boulder, and that is the final exit boulder. That takes us back into the mine. We had 5 remaining. We didn't have to use that final mine because, well, that takes us back into the cave. At this stage we are running out of ammunition, so let's leg it and let's get back out into the jungle, back to another shop. From here, it's a good idea to save up that game before we go anywhere else. We're now at the special shop, and the next section is an action sequence, and if you lose all of your lives on the action sequence, well, you can always reload from the save. At this stage, I'm more interested in raising the ammunition of that gun back up to at least 250, and that should at least help us, even though that's a huge detriment to the points that we've accumulated so far. And let's get some more chain mine ammo as well. Finally, that light armor means that we should be able to survive a few more knocks. And again, we won't bleed because we've already got the light armor from before, which stops the bleeding. But we're going to have to save up lots of money for that rocket launcher. And so, in the meantime, let's slam in that memory card and let's whack down another save state.
Regina. Go, Regina! Head towards that control tower! I'll cover you! This must be their nest. I can't handle this by myself. Use that signal bullet. I'll blast the big one to the place you point to.
Right!
We'll have to run like heck through that level, and when we launch the signal gun, Dylan will fire a missile on our location, and that will hopefully get rid of any blocks in the way and any dinosaurs as well. Is very exciting, as you can see, and we are under non-stop action, but really not under any threat at all unless we stop. We don't want those dinosaurs to get their jaws around us, so as long as you keep away from the sharp end and of course keep away from a dinosaur landing on top of us, we should hopefully be able to launch those grenades or those missiles down on their heads. See some clipping on my emulator.
That was close. Your turn now.
As an action sequence, I feel this adds a lot to the end of the game. It helps pad it out because it stops it getting samey and repetitive, and these action sequences, although the emulator is struggling with the collision detection, the going through boundaries and things like that, apart from that, on the real PS1, this was amazing, and this was really exciting the very first time I played this section.
Good job. Let's go.
I'm not gonna need this anymore.
We've made it to a new area, but it won't be very long before we find another interaction.
Regina, look. Over here. It's horrible. Who would have done this?
Dylan! Over here!
Now we have to suppress the Triceratops attack using the rifle, and those things take maybe 7 hits before they'll slow down, and at least 4 hits on target, so you have to count those through, and if they are getting really near us, we'll have to make sure that we hit those in the right place to repel the damage. And this section is one of those sections of the games where we can take damage, and it is possible to mess this section up. Will cut us off in the jungle and make surprise attacks and make ambushes and try to ram us and try everything in the book, and this is one of the harder sections of this game. Unfortunately, we failed, and so even though we've got unlimited ammunition, we don't have unlimited lives, and if we fail this quest, it's back to that load state, and we'll have to load it up again from that last checkpoint. Surprisingly tricky to keep that gun sight in the right direction, and with animals invading the picture left and right, it's very tricky to get through this, but with perseverance and some luck, it is possible.
Too close for comfort.
Yeah, that was some cool driving. Hey, Regina, in front! Watch out!
You can see a tremendous amount of effort went into those cutscenes and the quality of those graphics.
These people were the only ones left. There aren't any survivors now.
So we failed. How could we let everyone die?
Look, we still have the mission to retrieve the data on third energy research.
Dude, even if we get the data, how do we get back to our time? The activator for the gate has been destroyed, right?
That's why we need that data. If we study it, we might be able to build another gate to go back.
Fine. Let's split up and search the town for the data.
David? Let's go.
Okay.
We've made it into the city and there's much here, surprisingly, to explore because we're getting near towards the end of the game. And as I say, I absolutely adore the detail in those cutscenes for a PlayStation 1 game. That blew my mind, along with the cutscene in Parasite Eve 2 where she's taking a shower. But apart from that, these graphics are adequate for the time being, and they were certainly a step up from many, and top-of-the-flight AGA games on the Amiga were only just up to this quality. And this game was certainly surpassed on the PS2. And so, thanks for viewing this section, and I hope to see you again in the final section of this playthrough.